A community of waste reclaimers works at night under dangerous conditions for fear of being attacked after being violently evicted from the Verde Genesis landfill site in Johannesburg.
The Redens came and took our guys. They kidnapped our guys, they beat our guys, they robbed our guys. All those things, I think it was a strategy to intimidate us.
Aveda told the waste pickers that firstly, they are bound by the law of Dubai, and they cannot continue the arrangement that the waste pickers had with the company that were on the site before.
It looks like once again, like the most vulnerable in our society, the poor, are being muscled out of earning a living in a sector overtaken by private business. In a previous program of Special Assignment, we focused on the city's street reclaimers and how their livelihoods have become increasingly threatened. Tonight, we are at the Genesis landfill site where we will further our investigation. The torchlights in the distance are from waste reclaimers, combing this vast landfill site for recyclable waste. Selling it is their only means of income. They are working at night after the Red Ants evicted them when a Dubai-based waste company, Verde, took over operations here. 38-year-old Ndu Dube is one of more than 100 reclaimers working here.
I don't think there are no other options that I have besides this, because at the present moment you can see the unemployment rate as it is in the country is going higher and higher every day. So as for me, I've been doing this thing for almost 15 years now. This is the experience that I have, and most of our guys have been here for a long time. This is the least experience that we have in life.
We gained some insight into the hardships of having to earn a living here. The stench of tons of rotting waste and the biting winter cold were not the worst of our concerns. Before filming, the reclaimers made it clear to us that this is a dangerous place and they could not guarantee our safety.
The risk working at night in a street place is that it's an open place and anyone can come in, because most people know that what we're doing here, we're making a living, we're making money of it. They can come in and rob and take everything that you worked and you left with nothing, because recently some of our guys were robbed here of these recyclable things. That's the most major risk that we're facing here, because most of them, they come carrying guns.
We are unarmed and have no security with us. It's the dead of night, and despite the number of people working here, it's each person to themselves, defending themselves and doing what they must to earn a living. It's all about how much recyclable waste you can collect in a few hours. The women who work here say they stick together in small groups for safety. The risks associated with the job are high.
They are risky. It's a dump site, definitely there are some boglies, razors, all those sharp things.
Despite this, the reclaimers say it's worth it. Much of the waste that they unearth from the landfill is recyclable material. As you can see, there's no separation of recyclable waste. The waste has been buried deep in the landfill. It's an arduous task for these reclaimers to find waste which they can recycle. The Verde landfill disposes of commercial waste from big business and industries. The reclaimers say this waste has much more value than that in the landfills owned by the city that deal mostly with household waste.
You can see these people, they are just burying everything, even those recyclable things. They dump the rubbish and then they put the soil on top so that you can't get anything. They put the white soil that you use in here to bury everything. When you come here, you find everything is white. There's nothing on top. So you have to dig underneath the soil to get something. That's how challenging everything is right now.
During the day, Verde dumps tons of mixed waste on the landfill. burying most of what would otherwise be recyclable. This while the city of Johannesburg advocates for people to recycle their waste because it is running out of landfill airspace. Ndu says they've tried to engage Averda to recognize them as workers, but to no avail.
It's been 2 years we've been living like this. We've been trying to engage with them, but all has been in vain.
What do you know about Averda?
I know not much about Averda. The only thing that I know is that it's a foreign company, and the people coming from Dubai. Because last time we checked, we tried to engage with them, they will tell us that they're waiting from the law from Dubai.
In June this year, Averda obtained an order from the court to evict the reclaimers. It was issued without their knowledge, and they were not present to defend their interests. An alleged brutal attack by the Red Ants followed, leaving a number of reclaimers injured. The reclaimers say it was here on this property that they've occupied for years that they were beaten, assaulted, and their documents destroyed, and also kidnapped by the Red Ants. The property is behind the landfill and is not on Averda's premises. The reclaimers say they are still severely traumatized by the attack in June this year.
Some of our guys were kidnapped, even I was one of them. The Red Ants took us, they put in a big truck, they went and dropped us by freeway there going close to Southgate. They dropped us there, and in the truck they were beating us, and we didn't know where we're going. Some of them were telling us that we're going to kill you today. Some of them were telling us that today you will see what's going to happen to you. Say bye to your family, you'll never see your family again. And we were so traumatized, we didn't know what was happening.
Stephen Liu is also a waste reclaimer. We documented his struggle to earn a living in a previous program. Out on the streets, reclaimers like him have also been subjected to beatings, allegedly by private companies who are unwilling to share this lucrative business.
Each and every waste picker is highly affected by this. Everyone that's doing this work informally it's affected by this, because the private companies are here and they're beating us on the street. If they find you with this plastic, their plastics, they start beating you. We've got cases where we've got waste pickers that are in hospital. They've been harassed by these people, and we've been trying to engage with the city, pick it up as well. So say, what do? You see these private companies now, they're harassing us.
Stephen says after our special assignment broadcast, Pick It Up MD Lungile Dlamini arranged a meeting between them and the private companies contracted to manage the city's recyclables to try and resolve a situation that has excluded them from the sector.
Mr. Dlamini, before we met with these private companies, we were talking with him. He always defended himself, saying that he's still new in this position. He got into this position and the contracts were already signed. And he was very much supportive, telling us that, if he was there when the contracts were signed, he would have made sure that waste pickers are not left behind. But on the meeting that we had with him and the private companies, he was absolutely not defending us anymore.
In our last episode, Mr. Dlamini acknowledged that the contracts disregarded the inclusion of reclaimers into the industry.
We already signed the contracts, and there was an oversight on our part in that. In the planning, there was no consideration of waste pickers, which I also lamented.
How much are you paying these private companies?
Top of my head, because it's a rate, I stand corrected, but we're looking at plus or minus, I think, 20 rand per household.
It must amount to maybe millions.
Well, I don't know the total contract, value offhand, but I can safely say that it's a 3-year contract. It started last year. It started last year, just after I started as the MD. I think it was in October. I started in May, and the process of the supply chain process was well advanced. And when we then awarded, then we found out that, we had not done our homework.
And despite the criticism against what seems to be the city's xenophobic stance, the MMC insists that they will not register reclaimers since most of them are foreigners.
It is a known fact in terms of of what we've done and in the studies that we've done is that most of the reclaimers come from neighboring countries. And again, what the mayor said about it is that's the mayor's opinion, and that's of course something that we have to abide by when it comes to the rule of law. We will accommodate every single person who are here legally.
The city seems reluctant to disclose details about their contracts with private companies. Despite requesting the value of the contracts, it's still not clear.
I don't know whether it would be appropriate to use the names tonight.
But it's a known fact that's been out there, It's Bambile and Dikala.
Yeah, that operate in, okay.
Contract that we got with Bambile and Dikala. Can you explain to us?
Well, they're just basically responsible for collecting the recyclables from households that are participating.
What kind of contract did you enter into with them?
And
how much are you paying them?
Oh, well, they get paid, I think it is 25 rand per kilogram, or rather per kilometer. I don't have the details of the contract.
You should know what you entered into them.
Let me be clear. I don't enter into the
25 kilometers. You're paying how much for 25 kilometers?
No. Again, I don't have the details of the contract, and it wouldn't be fair for me to have all the contracts, details of all the contracts at hand.
So is it Dlamini's 20 rand per household, or the Jager's 25 rand per kilogram, or even kilometer? At this point, we are still nowhere near finding the actual amounts of the contracts. The reclaimers say that in a recent meeting with Dikala, they told them to stay clear of their recyclable materials.
Dikala Group, and they told us straight to say their plastics are branded, and people are going to be separating. As the municipality says now, it's going to be mandatory that each and every individual resident will have to separate material. And now they told us as the Dikala Group that whatever that's within their plastics, it's for them, not for us. And we're not supposed to touch those things up until we reach an agreement. Either we're going to be collecting those materials and sell to them, of which that becomes very much unfair because now they're going to be dictating the price. They're not going to give us the price that we are already selling to other buyback centers.
Dikala didn't respond to requests for an interview. Pambile says they have included and are skilling reclaimers, but the ones we spoke to said they are still negotiating. Averda is a multinational waste company based in Dubai. A few years back, the company began making inroads into the lucrative South African waste business. Here in Johannesburg, it acquired this landfill behind me, which is a stone's throw from the inner city. In the daylight, the Genesis landfill's mammoth size obscures the city's landscape, stretching across a number of blocks. In 2015, Averda announced it would buy a majority share in Wasteland, expanding its operations in South Africa.
They have multiple sites, and I think they're a big player in waste collection. But what was for us interesting for us is that they had contacted the waste pickers. In fact, the waste pickers had contacted them and said, look, we had this arrangement before. We want to be regulated on the site. How do we find each other? And then their position still remained that even initially they were willing to engage, But the position later was, look, we do not want you on our side. Two, it's not economically viable for us to continue the arrangement.
As we were filming outside Averda's premises, this man, who identified himself as part of security, stopped us from filming because he said the identity of their clients and their vehicles must be protected. The city wouldn't comment on Averda's business practices and the violence allegations, saying it's outside their jurisdiction. It's also eyeing commercial waste.
From a commercial business, absolutely. We have our own commercial unit where we are focusing on also trying to attract and collect more commercial waste, because Pick It Up focuses on household waste. But we've got a commercial unit. At this point in time, I think our market share is roughly 7%, and we have an aim of getting closer towards 20%. That is focusing on restaurants, big business, etc., to remove waste.
Despite our numerous attempts to get comment from the National Department of Environmental Affairs, which regulates entities like Averda, it failed to respond. Averda declined to be interviewed. In a written statement, the company claims that it only approached the courts following violence on their land. They say they have an obligation to operate a safe landfill and cannot comment on the events that occurred outside their property. The reclaimers have since formed an organization called Arrow to represent them in disputes. A process of registering reclaimers is also underway. Stephen Liu is one of the committee members who says he witnessed the Averda evictions.
We went to Genesis landfill, and on our arrival, we just saw trucks full of red ants, JMPDs, SAPs going inside the landfill. And we waited outside. We saw everything that happened within the landfill. They chased everyone out. Thereafter, they went outside. There's people who are recycling within the landfill that are staying outside of the landfill, next to the yard of the landfill. Those guys, they started beating people.
Goodman Mamba, one of the reclaimers caught in the violence, says they tried to open a case against the Red Ants at the Johannesburg Central Police Station, but the SAPS gave them the runaround for several hours.
Hey, ngavula icase ngaze nge-21 emva kokuthi kwesehlakalo lesehlakalo sesehlela sokufika ama-Red Ants azosishaya asithathele impahla aphinde futhi akidnapha nabafowethu ahamba osilahlela eSouthgate. Sasuka ke eSouthgate ngenyawo sazofika lana. Masisuka lana safika late savula icase the following day nge-21. Masifika sevula icase nge-21 kwabanzima ukuthi sivule icase. Sasancedwa uye unomzamo nakhona se-forced ukuthi why since sifike from ekuseni why bangasivuleli icase. Bazama ukuthi base bazivulela leyo case leyo late nakhona ngo-5 siloku sifike ngo-8 laphana.
Police say they are investigating the violent evictions at the Averda landfill site in June this year. The Red Ant security company denies any wrongdoing.
The economy has rejected them.
The Socio-Economic Rights Institute, who represents the Genesis landfill reclaimers against the Dubai-based company, says its dealings with reclaimers are in bad faith.
On the 24th of May, Averda went to court ex parte. So they went to court on their own without inviting the reclaimers. And when they went to court, they claimed that these reclaimers are nameless and faceless and that they had no way to identify them. And that's why they were coming to court on their own. But they said to the court that they would want one copy to be attached to the main gate of the landfill site, and the reclaimers could read it from there. This is strange because already in their papers they were saying that they were dealing with over 200 reclaimers.
During that time, the reclaimers had no legal representation to fight their case. When they did not appear in court, an eviction notice was issued, with the sheriff and law enforcement carrying out the order.
So the Red Ants go on site to support the sheriff in serving the order. And the sheriff is there simply to read the order granted by the court on the 19th of June or on the 24th of May. So they're there simply as a security for the sheriff. But we end up with them assaulting the waste pickers. We have people who are shot in the head. We have people who are robbed of their belongings. We have 8 waste pickers being kidnapped. This is all from the initial instruction of just simply accompanying the sheriff to serve an order. Because the court order only goes as far as Aveda's premises. But 2, it shows you that they were gung-ho, that they acted criminally. In fact, the waste pickers' view is that they chased them into their homes.
The matter is due in court in October this year, when both parties are expected to have filed papers. Since the attack, the reclaimers have been going on to the landfill because they have to earn a living.
As you can see here, I've got plastic here. This is plastic. We sell it for $250 a kilo. And this is K4. And here, I've got my Coca-Cola bottles.
Is that a good quality plastic that?
Yes, it is a good quality, because where we're selling it, they usually buy it. And here I've got my Coca-Cola bottles. All these are Coca-Cola bottles. And we're selling them for $450 a kilo. It's a bit challenging right now, unlike before when I knew that I would make plus or minus 1,000 rand a day. But now I can estimate something like 250 or 300 rand on this only.
After some time on the dump site, there is a sudden surge of people as bales of recyclable waste come tumbling down the landfill site. There is a certain urgency to get off the mountain of waste. If they get caught, they could get into trouble. Despite the alleged treatment by Averda, Mdu says he's still hopeful for a better relationship with the company.
I feel bad because we were the first people to be here. Even Averda found us here. But because they took us like rubbish because we're working in a dump site, it feels really bad for me. Because I know that there's a lot of money and there's a decent living I can make out of this place. But someone just took it and made it a useless thing for me.
Within a few minutes, the dump site is emptied of people as they maneuver through a number of obstacles, all the way down a steep incline of about 500 meters. They wait for one another to regroup, finding safety in numbers in the event of an attack. Tomorrow night, they will do it all over again. It's all they have to survive.